Hey guys, it's Chris from Mythic Games. As always, I'm here with you for another board game news roundup. Tonight we're going to be following up on a few things from last week, and then a few other things that have caught my interest this week. So first up, we got our t-shirt of the night, sporting a Star Wars with a little kanji. Love it, love the style, love the pictures. It's a nice take on it. Very old school. Absolutely love it. No game I'm going to show you this week, just going to go straight into the news. So, in case you have not heard, Gamefound officially launched. Awaken Realms said, here you go. They pushed the button on launch, and the countdown has essentially started with what's going to happen next. They are starting their own crowdfunding site officially. And why is this, again, so intriguing? Again, my full view last week, you can take a look at that video, linked below. But the reason behind this is a real chance to make a significant impact on the tabletop setting apart from the monopoly that Kickstarter currently has. And let's be frank, they have a Kickstarter. There are a couple other small crowdfunding sites. You have Indiegogo, which is the most notable one. There's a Japan one that a couple countries have their own individual ones like that. But this is really the biggest news to come out of this. And how much of the market share are they going to be able to capture? There's not a whole lot of details on what the cost is actually going to be for creators right now, as far as I'm aware. You can see that this is posted on the 6th in the afternoon. And so it's really going to be interesting to see how this sort of gets unveiled and what more happens from not only a backer side, but from a creator side. And the first individual comments that I've seen sort of spread throughout the internet are mostly positive. So that's really interesting to note that as we're all pretty critical, let's be fair, that they're positive and they're repeatingly positive in that sense. Now, the interesting thing is that they're putting their money where their mouth is, if you will. They're not just saying, hey, we're going to host other people's games and take a cut. We're going to put our next big game, which is ISS Vanguard, which is what's being pictured here, the art from it, and we're gonna do it directly there, and we're gonna see what happens. We'll talk about ISS Vanguard here in a minute. We'll look at the Kickstarter preview page for that, but I really like how transparent they are. They really have a good sense of what people want to see in the board game market and just as a consumer. So they go down and they break down what they've seen on Gamefound as their pledge manager that they've offered to other people for free already. And they say that using their service as a pledge manager, they've saved people 4.5 million euros. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. And 250 projects have used their pledge manager. So I think the whole purpose of this, now if you look back from a strategic standpoint, was this is the hook. They've got people into their system. They've shown them that they can be trustworthy. They've shown them that they have what it takes to support them. And now they're saying, hey, come use us broader. Use us now in this setting as opposed to Kickstarter. And that's going to where the interesting step and leap of faith is going to be. I believe someone commented earlier online that the late pledges for Project Elite or something were being handled on Gamefound as well. So it's going to be interesting to see, like I said previously, what other big companies are going to shift gears. Now, obviously, I think it's going to be very tempting, and the biggest thing for a lot of these companies always is bottom line, whether you're a small publisher or a big publisher. So if you're Siemens and your Peterson Games and your Serious Pulp, the big battlers in the past, what are they going to be putting out? Are they going to be sticking with the tried and true? Or if Kickstarter stays at their whatever 10% it is, are they going to be looking at losing business because maybe Gamefound does 8% or 6% or something like that? It'll be interesting to see because no one really knows how much of a cut that they want from that side of things, because Gamefound is being run not for profit, but you have to believe that there's going to be some incentive for them, at least at this point, with all of the logistical maintenance and the infrastructure that they put into this. So where is the payoff and what is it going to be? And it's going to come. We're going to see it. It's going to be just a time thing. They go through a few of the upgrades that they've done. and if you've been on Kickstarter at all, they start off with the most obvious. They're changing the comment section. They're allowing hashtags, likes, sorting, threaded replies, extra visibility for those people who are the creators, so that you're not digging through the comments trying to find the creator's comments, so that you can figure out what was actually said, so you don't have to, have 16 people try and repost it elsewhere or ditto it in this comment section. So that's really nice from that side of things. They're changing how you can do the stretch goals, dedicated feature just for that, because let's face it, everybody's still doing stretch goals in some manner or form at this point. Funding, I don't care about the funding thing. Thank you though. No graphics, no doing that by hand. So you're not seeing maybe hopefully funded in 90 minutes, funded in 30 seconds, funded in 17 days and 8 hours. That does nothing for me, and if this is a way to get rid of it, I'm all for it from that side of things. It tells you a little bit more of a breakdown on the stretch goals. That's nice. This is probably another one of the most common questions during campaigns, and you can see add-ons. This is just allowing you to add it straight to the pledge. So allowing you a little bit more customization, so you're not trying to do the math, so there's no question of what you need to pledge. Can I add it now? Do I add it during the pledge manager? So hopefully this is going to clear it up a little bit. Now, the one thing I'll say with doing so much at once is it going to be overload? Is it going to be too tinkery and too much nitpicking to do all at once? And time will tell. I think it's going to be very revealing in that sense. So, I mean, you can say something about Kickstarter in the simplicity that it is. You click pledge, it calculates the pledge, it can add in the shipping now. And then if you have a pledge manager or not, you can do a little math. So it's not terrible, let's be honest. You do a little math, even if you need to pull out your pocket calculator, you can figure it out. Is this going to be too complicated for the sake of complicated? And that would be my biggest concern with all of these added features. I don't think so, because if you can make the design layout relatively smooth, I think it's a good thing to have. But again, time will tell. Pledges, they're visual components. They're putting a visual component on the pledge level. Great. Take it or leave it. I don't think it's necessary, but hey, it's another added feature, so it is what it is. Mini Wizard, navigate throughout it. Again, not huge. So this is where it gets interesting from a creator side. You're going to have a pledge manager sort of A to B instead of one system to another. You're going to have systems that are basically going to be able to communicate with each other, as I think essentially what they're trying to do here. So it makes it easier for all of these various things. Shipping tables, product modification, communication, marketing, just not having to go from one to the other to trying to find what's the best one, what's going to be the best fit, which is going to be the less overhead logistically. They're just trying to simplify it from that side of things, and it breaks it down for you. I don't know much about the creator side of things, so I'll leave that for smarter people outside of this than me. Now, again, they say straight at the bottom, straight disclaimer, our pilot project is our next major game. So after that, we're going to open it up to a few select campaigns. I think it would be really telling to see also who these select campaigns are. Are they going to be vetted? Are they going to be hand selected, obviously? But are they going to be ones that we know? Are they going to be big names? Are they going to be small names? Are they going to be ones that are just close with Awaken Realms? What's going to be the relationship there? And I think that'll be very interesting to see who gets access at the beginning. And they talk about a good vetting system. After that 4 to 5 months, they're going to take other projects from more interested parties. So that's the time frame you're looking at. So if they launch as expected ISS Vanguard later this month, after that, you expect that to be 3 weeks to a month. So you're talking end of November, Thanksgiving-ish time here in the US. End of November, early December, maybe you see a few of those closed adoption ones. And then you're really talking March, April of next year, 2021, to see when things really start to pick up. And we'll tell, is this going to be feasible? Is this going to be viable? What's going to have to change? Because you know that there's going to be changes along the way that are going to have to be made. There's going to be less than ideal things, just like Kickstarter has shown us over time. So take it as you will. This will be definitely something I'll be updating in the future, because I'm very interested to see how it changes from a quality of life standpoint, as they put, from not only the backer side, but the creator side. even though I don't know much about the creator side. Now, and then right going into this, we're going into ISS Vanguard, and they've put out a little prototype preview page. You can notify it just on launch, just like they do on Kickstarter. Again, it's a great feature. You can sign into your Gamefound manager. They've got the comment section here for everything. They've got the little project storyboard over here on the left that you can navigate through. Let's be frank, one of the next thing I'm going to go into is Frostpunk, and Frostpunk's page on Kickstarter is basically a novel in length, and sometimes finding where you want to get on the page is a headache. And so this is a quality of life update here where you can click around and welcome, you can go to section by section. So I like that. I wasn't sold on it to begin with, but it really makes a difference because the pages on Kickstarter seem to be getting so long. They just seem to be going longer and longer and longer, and the relevant information that isn't a copy of the miniatures, isn't a copy of the game elements, of the cards and the number of this or that tokens you're getting, all of that stuff that's really relevant to the gameplay seems to be lower and lower and lower and lower and lower and lower on the page until you can actually get to it, because it's all about bling at the top lately. So if I can skip over some of that sometimes, or especially when I'm coming back to the page, I really like that. So why ISS Vanguard? So this is the game that I was talking about previously. This is sort of the 4X minus the 4th X, I think is the best way of describing it. People have already compared it to a few other star games or space games out there that have recently come out. Was it Uncharted or whatever that one was, where you're exploring planets and they did the 7 different planets. Obviously, it's different. It's going to be different, and already the criticisms are rolling in just based off the preview page. Anybody as big as Awaken Realms is a target for people who are going to gripe, and this project is going to be no different. You saw it during the first Nemesis, the second Nemesis, Tainted Grail, Lords of Hellas. You still see it at retail. At the same time, there's things that I appreciate because they're willing to put themselves out there. They're welcome to be open to criticism, and they're welcome to changing things that don't work. And that's why they have such a high chance of success, and why people have gone to them is because they like feeling like they're heard without needing to complain or incessantly bombard Kickstarter pages to get that message across. As I said, this is no man's land on a board game for me. You're going to systems, you're going to planets, you're going to research, you're going to crafts, you have your individual character. As opposed to Frostpunk, which I'm going to talk about after this, this game, despite being fully cooperative and each of you playing together, you also still have your own character or faction within the ISS Vanguard. And that's something very unique that they've done. I like the idea. I wasn't sold on this initially when I looked at this because they describe it as a binder, a high quality binder. And if you're anything like me, where all you think of, and you're from the age where binder means school and I'm putting papers in it and the monotony behind that, I have absolutely no interest. It's almost a turn off right away. But if you compare that to the 7th Continent, where you're sort of slotting cards and keeping track, this is basically a simplified mechanism in my mind, at least without knowing exactly how it's going to work, where you are slotting what you're getting in order to keep track of it. So literally all you're doing for a save game is closing the binder and then opening the binder back up. A little bit of what the horribly failed, in my opinion, from Lone Game Sharks, I think it was, Apocrypha. What they tried to do with the binder and having the cards lined up sort of around your character to supplement it. I think this is sort of a variant on that. Only not only is it your character, but it's the whole station of the ISS Vanguard itself, from your faction to someone else's faction, and the characters that you're recruiting to your factions, and all of the technologies that can get inserted into there. So this binder is essentially your ship in a way. And it's simple. It seems stupid at first, let's be frank. But I think it meets everything you're looking for, especially as a saved game situation where you might want to do one mission, you might want to do 2 missions, you might want to stop in between, and you might not want to keep track in the tedium that some of the other choose-your-own-adventure games have gone with in the past. And for me, that was a big downside for 7th Continent, one of the reasons I got rid of it. the tedium behind doing some of that. So this is actually a big selling point for me when I didn't think it was going to be. Now, breaking this down a little bit further, as I said, each person is getting their own faction, and they describe it as, well, they just, when the humanity went out, they divided themselves into 4 sections, each with their own focus, so they could not turn on each other. And so you've got your basic, you've got your engineerings, you've got your science people, you've got your pioneers, and you've got your security guys. So nothing groundbreaking there, but it's a nice way of thinking, okay, you are a player, you're a leader of one of those sections, and you're going to upgrade your own section, and you're going to try to get the best for your own section, but also try and get the best for the own section in terms of the crew and the ship as a whole. And are those things going to be cohesive, or are they going to sort of, rub each other the wrong way, because this is supposed to be fully co-op? And I don't really know, and I don't think there's a way to know right now. But they do talk about, if you do well on a mission, you're going to be drafting first from these guys. And so how big of a dynamic between these groups is going to matter, and what effect is that going to have? That would be my biggest concern with having 4 separate factions that are semi-competing against each other in that sense. Then they talk about the missions, 1 to 2 hour sections of, exploring planets, other explorable objects, which means, maybe you're going to have moons, you're going to have comets, you're going to have asteroids, you're going to have suns, black holes, I don't know. But I think they're going to be very creative in what you're actually going to be exploring, and I think that's the reason why you see something with that. It might even be something on a planet. They talk about going down on the planet and, having part scripted, part procedurally generated planetary boards. So even going to the same planet is going to get you something different, which I think is probably what maybe sets it apart from a few of the other games that are out there, is they aren't so story driven. If you know anything about Awaken Realms, they are more story driven. And a lot of the other games that are out there in terms of the space that have recently been kickstarted or put to retail in the last year or so, I don't think have quite that story or that scripting. So that's where they've shown that their strength lies, and they're sticking with it, which I commend them for. Now you can say, I don't want another story, I just want to go out and play. Well then, maybe this game isn't for you, and you can go out and get one of those other space games that have, funded and are out there potentially for backing. So, you're choosing your destination, choosing your spacecraft, choosing your crew, their equipment, position, even the position on their ship. So again, how is that going to, if you are always the red shirt, to take a Star Trek reference on this landing ship, how big of a deal is that? Directly going into my next point. This is where the main criticism I've seen pop up so far is, you are using dice for your crew member to perform tests. Obviously, you're going to be able to modify them and help shape the result. It's not just going to be pure dice rolling. In a game like this, with these guys developing it, it never is going to be. But that is where people have already said that they've turned off. I don't want dice rolling in my game. That's the quote I've heard. That's the quote I continue to hear across games. And if you don't, this is not going to be a game for you. It's clearly not going to be a game for you. As you almost hear me say in every video now, I like dice rolling. So dice rolling for me is not a break whatsoever. But what it allows you to do, which is interesting, is get rid of a whole dice and re-roll. So there's mitigation that you're going to be able to have. Each die is going to be a little bit different. You're going to be using special abilities along with this. So there's multiple ways that you're going to be, adjusting and changing it on the fly in case you don't get the exact die roll that you need. Then they talk about it, your skin in the game, as I talked about, force your decision on board or getting the first pick. Again, that's going to be the balancing point. Is this going to be not a trader game, but is this going to be, I get mine first and everyone else sort of suffers? And how much of that can you do without, sabotaging the whole mission or the whole quest that you're on, essentially? Events happening, they talk about having a separate mission log, transcripts of dialogue between crew members, the bridge, making a key decision. You're talking these into the save sheet, and so it's going to hopefully affect things down the line, so it's not just a one-off, and you can see the result of it. That's all they've shown currently. I think the art is representative of what I've come to expect from Awaken Realms. It's beautiful. It's The style is great. The coloring matches the theme. They appear to have integrated the theme, so even on, like I said, on this landing ship, where you are on the landing ship and where the cargo, which cargo is in what area, may affect what happens and what you're able to do later. So they're integrating it as best as you can, I think, from that side of things. So it'll be very eye-opening to see what a pledge level looks like, what sort of expansion system they're going to use, how much backer influence they're going to allow, and then just, from the creator side, what's the cut? What's the logistical side of things? I can't see this being delivered before 2022. Unless they've been planning this a lot longer than we think, this game probably won't be in your hands before early 2022. My guess is just, pure speculation, March 2022, if I had to just put a guess out there. So that's it. But notify, if you're like me, you've already got a notification there. You already have a Gamefound account. So they're offering $5, actually, I think, $5 US for anyone that has a Gamefound account off on this project. So they're really putting their money where their mouth is, as I said earlier. So check it out when it launches. I'm going to be covering it. Next up, Frostpunk. Here you go, Frostpunk. As I was talking about, Frostpunk, city survival game, IP, video game. As my whole video talked about last time, you're seeing more and more of these video games translating and going to the tabletop world because, as I said before, this is where the market is, and they're seeing the golden age of board games, and they want their market share. They want to grab their money and get a chunk of it. And this is by guys who clearly have a stake in the game and are clearly caring about the product matching the video game product, and they've done everything to match that. Now you can already see what we're less than 48 hours into the campaign at this point when I'm doing this video. They are already almost up to $1 million. I'll be honest, I was not expecting this to hit $1 million that soon. I had no doubt it was going to, but I didn't think it would be anywhere near this soon. And so it's exceeding my expectations. I didn't really know what to expect, though. I think that they make reference to, as you can see from the designers of Nemesis and this War of Mine. I will talk more to that about this War of Mine a little bit later, because this game is very reminiscent of what I know about that game in the first place, and the other comparisons that several of the video preview reviews have said is it's very much like Robinson Crusoe. How does it differ? How does it alike? And I think those are two interesting comparisons. And I'm going to talk about it actually in a little bit of a different way in a little bit, so you can have my view on it as well. I've saved it. I am not backing right now, as you can see. I took a look at the rules. I'll pull the rules up here in a minute, and I'll walk through them briefly. But for me right now, I don't think I'm going to back this game. Is this going to be valuable? Is this going to hold its value? Are people going to like it? I think all of those are separate questions in this. For me, I don't think this is going to be a good game for me, and I'll tell you why in a couple minutes. Is this going to be a good game for everyone? No. I think you have 7,000 people backing right now, and for the reason it's not going to be a good game for me is probably going to be the reason why it's not going to be a good game for other people. But your mileage may vary as well. This may be a game that gets you into this genre in the first place. So I think it's very intriguing that they open up with quotes from a few of the bigger names. You got Paul Grogan, you got John. I've interacted with him, the guy from Quackalope. I love him. Super nice guy, just from the interactions I've had online. I'm going to try to do something with him in the future, actually. He's been nice enough to be willing to collaborate. So at some point, we will have some collaboration. I have no idea what that's going to look like or what it's going to be, because I'm just excited that someone that is doing that level of stuff is even willing to talk to me. So anyway, as I mentioned earlier, here you go. You got your pictures. You got your components. It's all up front. This is where you got me going for the first thing. Hybrid complex Euro mechanisms with narrative. And that's where a lot of the excitement is they've said, I didn't know anybody could put those two things together. And apparently from the people that are playing it on the tabletop simulator, they really have done an interesting thing there. They have one-of-a-kind cube tower that is going to be your generator, which you're going to be putting coal in, and if the coal comes out, then your generator starts to malfunction. If your generator malfunctions, you get into all sorts of trouble because you can't generate heat, and if your generator malfunctions 2 times, then it blows up, and then you lose. Anyway, that's more of the rule side of things. Motivated player roles for a unique co-op experience. Now, this is where I'm probably going to disagree, and this is where my biggest criticism comes. And I'll get into that after I kind of get down there on the page. You're choosing your pledge. They have 2 basic pledge levels. In the core, you're just getting the game, you're getting plastic, you're getting the expansion that's included, which is most of the stretch goals they've said. And in the deluxe pledge, you are getting the cube tower as well as the detailed miniatures. And you're getting them pre-shaded as well. So this is sort of the nemesis version of Sundropped, if you will, the exclusive expansion. You're getting more variability. You're getting it at every pledge level, which I think is nice. You don't have to get the fear of missing out pledge level at the higher one that automatically groups the miniatures with the expansion. So thank you for not doing that. I really appreciate that glass cannon unplugged. Wow, that's a tongue twister for some reason. They go through the why back now. You're going to get it early. You're going to get a discounted price. It's off the MSRP. Stop using MSRP, people. No one is buying MSRP at retail. So I think that's always a slight irritation to me when people put that in the comments, because no one's buying MSRP. Get rid of it. Tell me 20% off retail, 15% off retail. Personally, I don't care if I get it before retail or not. I don't care. Exclusivity in that sense has no value for me. Pre-shaded, take it for what you will. If you want a 3D element, you can add it. There was one of those other Civ building games, like, I don't know, 6 months ago, a year ago, that a lot of criticism came down for. It was basically a Civ building tile laying, and they had the little miniatures in the houses and to make the grid. I forget what game this was, but it basically made the game like 120, 150 bucks for the game, when otherwise it was like a $30 or $40 game, and a lot of people took criticism of that, but a lot of people bought it. So I think that's why you're seeing a trickle-down effect of people willing to do this and put it out there. Even though molds are super expensive, you have a lot of people that somehow want superfluous houses of all things. Hey, if people are backing it, I guess so. Be part of the community. We're looking at an app, so it goes through all that. Basically, what you're doing is, this is the last city on Earth, and post-apocalyptic Ice Age. You're going to be doing a lot of stuff and dealing with a lot of stuff to keep the city alive, to keep the people alive, to keep them happy, to keep them from overthrowing you, for keep chaos from happening, to keep the generator from blowing up. And you're going to be going through, I believe it is 9 phases on each turn, except for the first turn, that simulate all of those different things. And for that reason, the playtime, as you can see on some of these sample videos as we go down further, the playtime on this game is relatively longer. Now, part of it is probably because they're playing it online and not in person, but part of that is because you're basically negotiating and talking through every single decision on every single action with the rest of the group. And so if you're playing with 3 or 4 other people, that's a significant amount of banter and conversation to go into even one decision. And so that leads to a much longer playing time. And that is where I will insert my criticism here then, is the way I look at this game and the way I look at this, as well as this War of Mine, similarly to Robin Crusoe, this is a solo player game feigning as a multiplayer experience or a multiplayer game. I guess it can be a multiplayer experience, but I don't look at this as truly a multiplayer game, because they even go out of their way to say everybody isn't really using unique as opposed to ISS Vanguard, where everybody has a unique character. You're still doing your own thing, but you're working cooperatively. Everyone's doing the same thing at the same time with this. Literally in the rules, as you have this, I'll skip down to, you've got these little meeples. There is a pool of meeples. So on the action selection phase, it's not like if you have 4 people and you have 16 meeples, each of you gets 4. There's a pool sitting in front of you, and you take turns going around the table, picking your meeple and putting it where you want. So you could be literally having a conversation one by one by one by one of which meeple every single turn is going to go where, which again, I guess allows for the most coordination because this game's difficulty is apparently that hard, but it also leads to a lot of quarterbacking, and I think this game epitomizes quarterbacking in that sense if you have one really loud voice that's trying to manage things, because you're going to be talking about everything. And although I might be the one placing the meeple, we're going to have a conversation where I place my meeple. We're going to have a conversation where number 2 places his meeple, number 3 places her meeple, and so on. Every single turn, every single round. And the goal of this game is there's not necessarily goals. It's just to make it to the end, to make it through, I think it's 12 rounds. So 12 rounds of that, which is why I think the Quackalope video that I watched part of, it's like 5.5 hours. 5.5 hours. Obviously, like I said, in the front of you in the tabletop, it's going to be much less. But if you have people that are impatient, or people like me that, I don't want to spend 10 minutes debating every single meeple placement, it's not gonna. I'm not gonna have the patience for this. So another reason that this game probably isn't for me. And they go through, they're looking at all the tiles and the tokens, and you're getting a whole bunch of stuff for your money, and you're getting a rule book, you're getting a player aid, you're getting a component tray, great. You're getting here the extra plastic. For a game like this, I know miniatures don't add a whole lot to gameplay in other games, even with the ones that have it. But for this I would be happy with a very well illustrated piece of cardboard with a picture on it that clearly delineates things in color. So this, if I was going to be backing this, it would not be at the plastic level. And I think you save like $50 for that, if I remember correctly. Let's take a look here real quick. So core is $88 US and $147 with more. So 50 euros, which is what, 59 US dollars. That is the price of a whole nother Kickstarter campaign with shipping of a decently sized game. That is 2 copies of Cascadia with shipping. So I mean, that's a big difference for something that's not necessarily adding gameplay value in that sense. So from value-wise, for me, it doesn't do it. Appreciated miniatures. So this is the goal. You're basically making it to the end. Each round is a day, and so you're gonna be doing a ton of stuff. There's morning events, there's dusk events, there's morality, there's weather, there's the generator, and each building has a different heating pattern, and people get cold and then they get sick, and if you lose enough people or enough people get sick, you die. You're going to be placing your meeples as it shows here. Here's the sickness, here's the exploration. There's going to be consequences to your action, both positive and negative. You got to feed everybody, you got to shelter everybody, you got to move people around. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's a complex game. It is a Euro game in that sense, that your actions are going to have consequences. You're going to need to be strategic. And if you're not strategic, you're going to lose relatively quickly. I don't think this is one that's going to hold your hand the first couple rounds. It is going to be difficult from the get-go. They've done their homework. They've sent it out to people who are experienced with these games. So people who have played games like this like it. And if you like this sort of game, if you liked this War of Mine, you will probably like this. If you didn't like this War of Mine, I don't think this is going to change your opinion. Just as if you didn't like Seventh Continent, I don't think Seventh Citadel is going to change your opinion. There are horrible ethical dilemmas that they put out there. This is not going to be a quote-unquote fun game. You are not going to be uplifted by this game. This is going to be hard. This is going to be thematic. This is going to be difficult, both in a mental side of things. I think the example that they use in one of the videos is you have to decide whether you're going to build a shelter for your children or you're going to use the children as child labor. Those are the 2 options. So this is not going to be, all sunshine and rainbows in that sense. So, and they have plenty. They have one-stop co-op shop. I like his short reviews. He goes over positives, negatives. The Quackalope videos down here, right there. And so they talk about the stretch goals. They're doing daily reveals. Now, I don't really quite get this. They're doing a reveal each day, but they put all of these out there as the stretch goals. So I guess they're just going to be talking about them more on a daily basis. But the interesting thing, and the one thing that I saw was that the scenarios, when I looked at the one-shot co-op one, was that there's a couple different scenarios, but the scenarios themselves will often be different objectives or different order within the scenario. So even if you play the same scenario twice, you're not going to be necessarily playing the exact same scenario, as opposed to something like Dead of Winter, where if you're playing that scenario, it's going to start off very similar each time. And I think that was one of the other concerns, is that sometimes there is a little bit of, I'm going to do this in this order because this has clearly been shown to be the best path, when in my other games, I'm going to build the shelter first, then I'm going to work on the generator, and then I'm going to work on this. And so he did say that there was some of that, and that would be my biggest concern. And so hopefully some of these stretch goals will alleviate a little bit of that tension. They talk about the app, and they make it very clear here, and this is always people's big concern. They see app, oh my gosh, what happens if they don't keep... The app is going to be completely separate. Your game is going to be able to play separately by yourself. The app is just frosting on the cake. So if you are not an app person, if you don't want something digital involved to your game, you don't have to. And they say that as a reassurance here. Your daily stretch goals, you're playing. I did take a look at the rule book. I'm not going to go through it in great detail. I already talked about a lot of it. It's 31 pages. You can take a look at it if you will. I will say I was a little difficult to read at the beginning because they don't actually just talk about setting it up. They talk about setting it up on Tabletop Simulator. So it's different in that sense. You can see the 9 phases: the dawn phase, the morning phase, the generator phase, the weather, the prep, the action, where you're doing all the main stuff. Then your dusk, which is a result of whatever you did in the morning. Then you have to feed people, and then there's nighttime. So then it goes and it talks about all the other things that can happen with your people, with the technology, with the laws that you have to make, with sending people out, and just how sickness and death occurs. So it goes into great detail. It's an okay rule book. I wasn't that pleased with reading some of it, but it's very dry. And if you're a rule book person, you can get a good sense of what you're doing. They tell you relatively on at the beginning, here are the 5 or 6 ways that you're going to lose. So you're going to lose. There's lots of ways that you're going to lose. Like I said, the difficulty is relatively high on this. So you're not going to be winning. If you want a co-op game that only has a 20% or 10% chance of winning, this might be your game. There you go. That's Frostpunk in a nutshell. So if this is intriguing to you, check it out. If it's not, I'd still say check it out because it's something new. And I think, again, I'm glad to see that this is rewarded, that people are seeing the quality and the effort that goes into this. Whether or not it's for you, you have to appreciate someone willing to put themselves out there and willing to try something new, because it leads to creativity, a trickle-down effect for other people in the future saying, hey, if they could do this, what if we tweaked this and did this for our game instead? And it's great to see. Similarly, in the sense of what Awaken Realms has done. The next big piece of news that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to skip away from Kickstarter for a minute for the games that just launched this past week, and an email that I just got today talking about Mythic Battles Pantheon. And this is from the 1.5 update, but I'm sure they'll send it out to the 1.0 update as well. They are talking about Ragnarok. This has been sort of on the horizon for a long time. People have been wondering. There's been rumors for a while that it's going to launch before the end of the year. And so they start addressing this a little bit in Ragnarok. You've got a little bit of art there you can sort of see as a placement thing, and wondering what you're actually going to see in Ragnarok to begin with. I mean, I think most of us would say, at least me, in terms of my education background, we were exposed to the Greek pantheon, exposed to the Greek gods and goddesses and the monsters and the tales. And so a lot of that is very easily relatable, and I think that's contributed to their success. Now, some people are more familiar with Ragnarok with the whole explosion of the Marvel cinematic universe and the Thor movies and Ragnarok and everything that went with that. But as a whole, I don't think there is nearly that recognition of their pantheon and a lot of the monsters and creatures and lore that there was with the Greeks in that sense. The two are not nearly as ingrained, especially in the North American teaching, especially in the US. A lot of the backers in the first place being from the US, it'll be interesting to see how they tailor it. They did the Ymir model of the one standalone with the 1.5 if you went for that, and saying that it was going to have an exclusive head, but you can still get it in the next campaign. So they talk about it, and I like their honesty. These guys have been a little bit humbled, I think, with the failure of that whole Beyond the Monolith thing, and then they got Conan to get back on their feet, and then COVID sort of threw them for another loop, and they admit it. And so I like that. I like them being, not, too high on themselves. They understand that, they've done some things good, they've done some things bad, and they're willing to work on it. Again, that's what matters to me. So then they start talking about it. They're going to start showing us week by week, it says here. So maybe we're going to see new things. This is your first game board. This art is beautiful. You talk about, what does it say? Naglfar. from the core box. Yeah, apparently they posted that on Facebook, but this is art that is just looking beautiful. Now, I would love to see, give me a playmat. I criticized another campaign last week about putting playmats out, but I would love to see this on a playmat instead of a cardboard fold up. I know the price is going to go up, but could you imagine rolling that out onto the table and just the table presence? That would be amazing. So what they're going to do is they are going to send a survey out about what they want to do from the previous content, as well as what they're going to offer during the pledge manager and during the campaign. So it's going to be sort of, they're going to take the census of where people are at. They're also going to be offering some bundles, and they're going to be, wanting to see what people want. Not just sort of full steam ahead, bull in a china shop, head down, rushing forward, which is good to see that they're doing some of that beforehand rather than trying to do it during the campaign as other people have done. So again, they got another FAQ, they got some art, and then they go into the French. So just a quick update on that, but it's good to see because I think as the rumor has spread that they're still trying to launch it before the end of the year. So you're running out of time. Personally, I see this one probably being beginning of December. I see them going December. I don't see this. If you're telling me you're going to run stuff out in the coming weeks, you're going to be running this in the middle of December, which goes around the holiday time, which people always fret about. But let's be honest, if you're going to back it, you're going to back it no matter what time. So there you go. Next up tonight, in case you didn't hear, this is brand spanking new, announced earlier this afternoon. Mythic Games finally, as I ranted about last week, finally came out with the Kickstarter date for The Darkest Dungeon. So in case you did not see it, the official announced date of the Kickstarter campaign is going to be on October 20. So I was right. I said pick a Tuesday afternoon in the rest of October, and there you go. So they're going to be doing it on October 20. They're going to be slowly unveiling things, I would hope, in terms of gameplay, in terms of what's going to be included. There's going to be a Kickstarter page in which you can click on it to be notified when it launches. So hopefully they'll show us a little bit more between now and then. But in case all your junky Kickstarter tendencies were itching, now we have a date. Now we have a lead up. And so now we know what to expect. It's going to be starting when a lot of the other ones are ending that I'm currently backing. So at least there's some overlap so that I can say, is this worth keeping versus am I going to be getting into Darkest Dungeon and spending my money that way? So I like the fact that they went a little earlier in October so that there's some overlap. I think there's always some concern that they're going to be too spaced out. So I'm going to have to decide whether or not I'm going to keep this pledge before the next campaign even starts. So I like that. I know a lot of people don't because they always worry about their wallet in that sense, but I think this is actually a wallet helper, not a wallet hurter. So I'm going to be covering this as it goes. I'm interested to see where it goes. And as I said before, how much they try and package in one core box versus multiple boxes with expansions, as they did not do their last game, Hell. But as people, one of the nice commenters from a previous video said that there are several DLCs that sort of added things and added characters. They are doing polls on their Kickstarter board game page. I don't remember if it's the Mythic one. I think it might actually be the Darkest Dungeon board game group, that they're allowing people to choose characters. And so there's going to be more development there. I hope that that actually has meaningful impact. And I hope to see more of that prior to the launch, and we have almost 2 weeks from right now when I'm recording this until then, so hopefully we see some more interaction in that sense. I'm still really want to see gameplay. Reading a rule book, watching someone else read a rule book can only do so much for you. So for me, it really is gameplay driven. I want to see it firsthand. So I'm waiting for that, and you probably won't see any of that until a couple days into the campaign. So that's going to be what it's going to be. So we'll see where that goes. So quick update on this one. I wasn't planning on covering anything else tonight, but this came out actually while I was in the midst of filming this, and I think it's important to bring up because as a backer and as just a general overview and transparency, like I talked about earlier, this is a concerning issue to me. Now, I backed Street Masters Aftershock, which was the expansion slash standalone expansion cooperative mini board game where basically you're taking your old fighting school games, putting them on a grid, and using this modular deck system that was really pretty innovative by the Sadler brothers, and battling out against bad guys, AI. It's a great solo game, it's a great co-op game. I ended up trading for the base game, ended up backing this expansion, but I ended up getting rid of it all because honestly, I thought the miniatures were not that detailed. I really wasn't impressed by them. There was a lot of minutia with tracking stuff, especially in the first base game, and then honestly, it just it seemed very raw in terms of things, in terms of elements, in terms of rule explanations. And so it was fun, but it was also kind of broken at the same time. So it wasn't going to hit the table for me in place of a lot of other things, so I ended up getting rid of it. Now, this funded for almost $500,000 back in 2018. It ended up funding at the end of November. The pledges were received for the most part here in the US in the end of October, early November 2019, and so now we are almost pretty much a year out from being received, and they just put out a new update tonight, and this is what I'm going to be talking about, and this is why this is important, is they're doing a reprint. Now you go, normally reprint is no big deal, right? Blacklist games, sure. There have been a lot of issues in fulfillment. They did not print or produce enough stretch goals from the base game to deal with all the errata and all the issues that was with the base game originally. They didn't include those in some of the packages. So people have been getting these. They've been having people have to email them consistently to even ask for those. They wouldn't even know who. So they don't even, left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing necessarily. And now they've said that, okay, we're going to announce a new standalone expansion called Tide of the Dragon. Great name, great name. That being said, two big things that stand out here. They're launching on an Indiegogo, and they're launching it later this month on the 21st. So you're looking at less than 2 weeks from the time of me filming this. Second, and they even go out and say this right here, it's important to note that this reprint will happen regardless of the amounts of funds raised. Now, what reprint? Is the reprint for people who are waiting to get the product they should have gotten a year ago. You're going to have to wait at least another essentially 7 to 8 months to get it at the earliest. If it's on time, they're saying May 2021. May 2021. And that's if things go right. That's if no delays. And you can guarantee that if they're not even willing to put the money forth right now for it, that they're not going to send it separately from this new expansion. And so if this new expansion is delayed at all, you can guarantee that those previous rewards are going to be delayed. So you could be looking at almost another full year from now that you could be getting this. And I think people are going to be pretty mad about this, and rightly so. The people who pledged literally 2 years ago may have to wait a whole nother year when other people got it 1 year ago from now. So you're talking almost a considerable 2-year difference between same people backing a campaign and getting the same rewards. And that's unacceptable because it feels like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. And that doesn't earn you goodwill in this community, and it doesn't seem like there's enough transparency going on here. And I'm not sure why you're using Indiegogo. Are you concerned about the funding that you're going to get because of the backlash you've had with this one already? I don't know, but there's something missing here, and it doesn't make me happy. It's slightly irritating, and I would be, unless you're a completionist, I would be reluctant to back this, knowing all of the issues that went into this campaign in terms of delivery, in terms of missing products that people were actually supposed to receive, and the fact that they're still not going to get them, and they're going to launch a whole new campaign, basically to fund their mistake in the first place. This is almost as big as the Black Rose War. This is probably bigger to me and more of an issue than the Black Rose War people trying to extort people with additional shipping money because they screwed up on the shipping cost. This is just people not getting the rewards that they already paid for. So that's irritating. And for me, I'll watch it, and I'd like to see what happens with it as a reporting more of news from that side of things. But I wasn't impressed, and I'm a little put off by it now, even though I sort of like the actual product. But for me, it's going to be a pass, easy pass. And I would say backer beware at this point because of the issues that came with this campaign. So we'll see what happens with it, but this is not encouraging from a consumer standpoint, I'll say. Hey, I got an update. While I was editing this and trying to finish filming this, Blacklist Games actually came out and put another update out regarding the Street Masters Aftershock delivery, and someone posted it on Reddit. And it's basically going into why they were choosing Indiegogo as a pre-order platform. So basically, no matter what, they can start reprinting this. And they're going to be delivering it because they're going to ship it on their dime, they said, with a new product, essentially. So what does that actually mean? And they're going with QML, I guess, this time instead of BlackRock. And the interesting thing on this is that they're going to be, they address all of these other issues, and there's a big post there. I couldn't find it personally, so I found it on someone had posted it back on Reddit. And for me, I'm still concerned that they're going to be using their previous funds, because if you go back to one of the previous updates that they put out, I think when was this? In April, actually, as they're talking about these fulfillments. And they actually say, what if we burn through all of our inventory by mistake? And they say flat out, we ordered enough stuff, we're going to reprint it on our own dime to ensure you get your product. We're going to be purchasing from the factory that show our partners we ordered enough inventory, we have these orders, and then we're going to stay proactive. We're going to, if they're ready to help us out, start with the reprints if needed. They understand the urgency, where it's going to get 2 to 3 weeks to print, and then we're going to airship them to hubs. It's a backup plan, and I guess the question is, what happened to this? Because now we still don't have enough stuff, and I'm not up to date on all the other updates, but why hasn't that been used to address things? So I guess whatever happens with this next update and this crowdfunding pledge on Indiegogo, I would have to think as a backer, if you're familiar with this, can't help but have the feeling that your money is going to subsidize the previous inventory lack that they had, whoever's fault it is. They go out and clearly say between them and Black Box that neither one blames each other. Well, somebody had to make the mistake. Somebody has to say we screwed up. And these updates that I skimmed through, reading through them between December of 2018 and 2019, I think this is, or sorry, December 2019 and April 2020, they repeatedly say we're not at fault, but don't blame them. But don't blame them, we're not at fault. So somebody made a mistake, and somebody's paying for it. And I feel like if you're going to be backing this next Kickstarter campaign, you are going to be the one paying for it, because maybe now it's $60 instead of $50, or it's $70 instead of $60, because they're having to subsidize that reprint, because otherwise I would think that they would have reprinted them all before then. So I don't know, this is all speculation. I mean, these seem like good guys, but even good guys can make mistakes, and so for me, that's going to turn me off to backing the product, even if I would level one standalone game that they've taken and refined and doesn't have the issues with the previous games. For me, I'm just going to stay away from it, because if I can get it at retail, I can not have to worry about any of those logistical issues. So for me, that's the final take on it from my standpoint.